Welcome you to another video in our video series on the Web Mountain Technologies RUC-02 unit Remote Universal Controller. This video will use the RUC-02 as an Ethernet PIM with Upstart. So let's start that. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this and we'll bring open Upstart. Now when Upstart opens up, you might get this error message that it's an out-of-date version. If your Upstart version is less than 6 months old, you're probably okay. If it's older than that, I'd recommend updating it. And if you don't have Upstart, you can go ahead and download it. So in both cases, go to our website, www.webmtn.com, go to support, then downloads. If you don't already have not registered with us, you'll need to enter your email address and then you'll be able to download the file. The file is a zip file. Download it to your PC, unzip it, and then run the setup.exe file. It will load over the top of your existing file if you have it, or it'll do a new install for you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now, once you've got that downloaded, installed, or if you already had it up and running, and when you open up Upstart, it will then ask you what task would you like to perform with Upstart. You can begin the PulseWorks System Designer, which is what they recommend for first-time users, but we're assuming the majority of viewers of this video are comfortable with Upstart, have been using it in other manners, and we're just showing you how to use Upstart with the RUC-02 unit. You can open an existing network file. You can create a new network file, starting with choosing a network ID and password, and you can create a new network file that matches an already installed network. This would be the case if, as a professional installer, you took over an existing installation but you didn't have the network file. You can use this procedure to learn the network, learn all the components, and add them into a new network file. Again, this is not intended to be a tutorial on using Upstart. I probably will do a full-blown tutorial on that later, but for the moment this is just showing you how to use Upstart with the RUC-02 Remote Universal Controller unit. So we're going to start off by creating a new network file, starting with choosing a network ID and password. I'm going to click go. Actually, let me back out of this and I'm going to do one more thing. Let me come back up here and disconnect, and if it had come up, in fact, let's do this. Let me close real quick and I'll reopen Upstart. And we'll go through that. We're going to create a new network file, but notice here it's going to come up and it's not going to find the PIM. So it's going to say error accessing the power line interface. Click I understand, and then it says there may be a problem. Go ahead and click connect the PIM. Most of you, this is what you're going to experience the first time you try to use the RUC-02 unit. So notice up here in the upper left hand corner we've got an interface type drop down. Those of you that have used Upstart have probably used it with either an RS-232 PIM or with a simply automated USB SIM or with a PulseWorks USB PIM. But in this case, we want to use the last option, WMT RUC-1 and RUC-2. Notice that when we select that, the TCP port comes up by default at 9761. Then notice also it shows by IP address. If you're doing this locally on the same local area network as the RUC, then you want to use by IP address. And in this case, this is the IP address of my RUC-2 unit. My test and demo RUC-2 unit, and this is the same IP address you would use in your browser to be able to access the user interface of the RUC, and you can also find this on the network config page of the user interface of the RUC. This will be the local IP address. If you were trying to do this remotely, the TCP port would change and you would use by name www.wmtremote.com. But we're doing this local right now, so this is how it will be configured. Just put in the IP address of your RUC on your local network. Notice this button right here, Run RUC1 Discovery Program. That only works with the original RUC1 unit. It does not work with the RUC2. Don't try to use this button with the RUC2 unit. Okay, once we've got all of that done and we've got it configured, go ahead and click on the Connect button. And you'll notice I'm going to get the big red X here. And that indicates the UPB interface could not be found on the specified network location. So the reason for that is that I don't have the PIM connected to the RUC. So I'm doing that now, and the RUC is plugged into a power outlet, has a serial cable coming off of it, and I just connected the other end of the serial cable to COM1 on the RUC2. COM1 is the DB9 in the middle of the device. COM2 is the one closest to the front of the unit. So I've got it connected to COM1. If I connected it to COM2, I would need to change this TCP port up here to 9762. But I'm connecting to COM1, so we're going to use that at 9761. Okay. If that, when you get this red X, that indicates there's some kind of a problem. So you need to verify your connections, make sure you've got everything, cables connected, and you're connected to the correct DB9 port, that your PIM is plugged into the wall and has the serial cable connected to it. Verify you've got power going to the PIM. Look on the left-hand side of the PIM and you'll see a small LED. That should be lit. If it's dark, either the PIM is bad or it's not getting power. So that could be the reason you're getting a red X. All right, so I'm now reconnected. Now let's come back up and try connecting again. And you'll notice we've got green arrows coming down here and the selected power line interface is operational. Now before we leave this page, let's go up here and click on Settings. We recommend that you make your settings look like this, and you can only get to this settings box once you're connected to the PIM over here. So make sure Enable PIM Disconnection Watch is not checked, and that the Upstart exits leave the PIM in message mode is selected. This will make the system and procedure much more stable. Now go ahead and click OK. Okay, we're all connected, settings are set. Let's click on Close. And now we're ready to set up a network. So here, notice it comes up and says create a new network. So in our case, I'm going to call the network Test 21, and I'll give you a reason for that here in a second. The network ID I'm going to choose as 21, and the network password 2121. This is how we normally train folks to use Upstart. The way we do that is we tell folks to make the network ID match the last two digits of the address where the network is installed. The reason for that is UPB is a pretty powerful communications protocol. In some cases, you could control devices in the home next door if both of you were on the same network ID. So for example, we tell people don't use network ID 1 because that's the most common one, and that's the default. When people set up Upstart, it will normally come up at network ID 1, and a lot of people just leave it there. And so we tell people don't do that. Use a different network ID, and a good way to try to prevent this is by using the last two digits of the house address. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and click on OK. Now we're ready to add a device. So, by the way, notice right here this says disconnect. That's how you know that you're still connected to the PIM. If that said connect, then you'd lost connection and you need to reconnect. All right, let's go to devices, and we're going to add a device. So you click on that. And those of you that have used Upstart know that you need to put the device to be programmed in the setup mode. So I'm going to do that. I'm using an appliance module, and the way you put an appliance module in the setup mode is by clicking the button on the side 5 times quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the LED next to it should start flashing, indicating that it's in the setup mode. So mine's flashing, we're in the setup mode, let's click next. And now it goes through and reads the unit. Notice that it tests for the PIM first, and then it finds the module in setup, and then it starts reading the module. It's not making any changes to the device right now. It's just reading the registers within the device. Okay, at this point now, notice that right out of the box, it has a default room name of new room name and a device name of new AMO2. We've not made any changes to the unit. This is what's programmed into the unit out of the box. This is important because these are the names that when we export the UPB file into the RUC, these are the names that it will use for working with the Amazon Alexa system. So in this case, the invocation phrase you would use with Alexa would be, Alexa, turn on new room name, new AMO2. Well, that's pretty confusing. It's not very descriptive. You don't know what's going on here, and I'd certainly hate to try to teach it to other family members. So we want to change this. So I'm going to change the new room name to front, and I'm going to change the device name to landscape. So now the Alexa invocation phrase will be, Alexa, turn on front landscape. That makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Also notice you can change the unit ID if you want to some other number. We're going to leave it at 1 since this is a brand new network. Go ahead and click Next. And now this time it's actually going through and changing the necessary registers to reflect the new room name and the new device name. Okay, once that's complete, go ahead and click on Done. And you see our new device is on the main screen of Upstart as an icon. It's unit or device ID 1 with the name of front landscape. So now let's go ahead and double click on that, and we bring up the edit window. And this particular window is the ID window, and it gives us all the information on this device, the network name, room name, device name. You can change most of these from here other than network name and network ID, but it gives you all that information. But where the real magic occurs is under Receive Components. By default, all UPB devices come with some links in here. It doesn't matter where, and I use the term links interchangeably with scenes. Link was the original name used within UPB for many years. A few years ago, Upstart changed from link to scene. And so if you see the term link or the term scene, those are interchangeable. So we've got scene 10 here, and that's by default. That could be in any line here that we wanted. It doesn't have to be on line 1. Each UPB device can be a part of 16 different scenes. A scene is something that controls multiple devices. So any device on the network that has scene 10 in its receive components will respond to an activate or a deactivate command. Now, scene 10 is not a very descriptive name either, so let's come down here and open the scene name table, and we're going to add a new scene name. Let's first put in scene 5. We'll add a new scene 5, close that, and then I'm going to rename scene 10 and rename it here, and I'm going to call it landscape. And I'll click OK. Close. Now notice it updated my receive components table to be landscape. Again, that could be down here on line 9 and it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter where it is in the 16 links. So I'm going to just go ahead and put it back up here as just making everything more easily readable. And you'll notice on the side it's at 100%. And that's what we want. An appliance module is either going to be on or off. Don't use the last level. That's a confusing mechanism, but it's only on or off. If we had a dimmable device like a wall switch, you would see 0 to 100% in 1% increments. But an appliance module only gives us on and off, so we're at 100%. Now, go ahead and let's program the device. Anytime you make any kind of change here, you've got to go down and program the device. All right, that's completed. So you can see here we've got the landscape link or scene is programmed in. You probably don't care about these other options. There's nothing you probably change there. You don't change the advanced one without a really good reason. You can test the unit, turning it on and off, and then you can do a communications test on the device, and this will show you what the signal level is, and it would show you any noise that might be on the system, noise or interference. And in this case, this is the signal measured at the device when it was transmitted from the PIM, and this one is the signal at the PIM when it was transmitted from the device. All right, so go ahead and close that, and now we're back to the main screen of Upstart. The first thing I would do is go up and save the file, do save as, and it will come up by default using the network name. And in most cases, that's what I recommend. Just use the network name and go ahead and click save. And now the network is saved, and if we want to come back in and add more devices or change a configuration, we can open that device and do that easily by coming up here and just clicking open and finding the file we want. All right. So now that that's saved, let's move that information from Upstart into the RUC unit. So go ahead and go back up to the UPB circle, come down to Export, and select Export to WMT RUC. Now you notice we've got Export to Local RUC and Export to Remote RUC. Don't worry about the remote one at the moment. That's what we're doing is all local. We're going to export to the 10.0.0.137. Okay, I'll come back in a minute and talk about doing a remote Upstart. So we're here on the local network. We're connected to that. Notice that it's connecting to port 80, Ethernet port 80, and that is also shown on the network and config page of the user interface of the RUC. But notice also that we're using the WMT RUC user here rather than the admin user. So we need the password for the WMT RUC user, and that's on the index card that came with the RUC unit. If you have a problem with that, we can share that information with you. Just give us a call or email us. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my password, and then I'm going to click on Begin Export. And it comes up and says, it may be helpful to know export's complete. Now, I only had one unit. Notice that took only a couple of seconds. The more devices you have, the longer this will take. And if you had 20 or 30 devices, it's going to take multiple seconds. If you have 150 to 200 devices, this will take multiple minutes. It could come up with a message saying Upstart is not responding. Ignore that message, just let it keep working, and it'll keep working until it finishes it off. Once you get this, click on I understand. If you might get an error message if it doesn't like the password, and you have to go correct the password. If you have 150 devices and you do the export and it happens in 1 or 2 seconds, that's not right. You need to take a look at it and see what's going on because it didn't really do the export. So anyway, let's go ahead and click I understand. My export is complete, and we're going to go ahead and close this. And I'm going to go back to network, and I'm going to disconnect the PIM. So then I'm going to minimize Upstart, and now we're going to go open the user interface on the RUC. And you would start here at the home. Now go down and click on triggers. And I'm not going to get into triggers in this video. I'm going to have another complete video dedicated to triggers. The triggers are very powerful, and this is where you get actions done, where you can control devices based on a schedule, buttons from your smartphone, or by sending another command. I'm not going to get into that at the moment, though. What I want to show you here is under the send command, we've got UPB direct, which is a device command. Come over and look under other device, and you'll see our device showed up there, front landscape. Also, go to UPB link, which is a scene, and then come over and look under other, and you'll see scene 5 and landscape. These are the configurations that were in Upstart that we transferred from the RUC, from Upstart into the RUC2 unit. So we know we got a successful export into the RUC. So now all of those things, rather than having to manually type in device number 10, you can just come over here and select device or link that you want. And notice also that it populated the network ID for you based on the network ID from Upstart. So all of that is populated for you automatically and makes it much, much easier to be able to set up triggers within the RUC2 unit. Okay, so that was how we use Upstart to do a Upstart session with the RUC2 on a local network. Now let's take a look at doing that remotely and how you would accomplish that. So let's go back into Upstart, and you can tell that I'm disconnected since it wants me to connect. I'm going to go into Configure. Okay, now since I'm going to be doing this remotely, I need to change the TCP port, and rather than by IP address, I need to go to by name. By name, we're going to put in, by default, and this is what you want, www.wmtremote.com. However, the port is going to change. Remember the way you accessed the RUC remotely was www.wmtremote.com : a 5-digit port number. And in my case, in this unit, it's 10170. In order to do a remote Upstart session, I need to change this TCP port, and I need to add one to it, 10171. If I were connecting to port 2, it would be 10172. But we're connecting to COM1, so it's going to be 10171. So this is how you would connect remotely. Now just go ahead and click on the connect button, and you should get a connection here. I'm not going to do this because this won't work locally. I'm on the local network trying to go out remotely and come back in. But this should work from your office if you're a professional installer wanting to talk to a client and your PC is in your office and the RUC is at the remote location. All right, now having said that, once you do get connected, and if you want to do okay, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to close that, and it still wants me to connect. But now if I want to do an export, and export to the WMT RUC, I come back over to export WMT RUC, but now I'm going to use the export to remote RUC. So it's going to export to www.wmtremote.com. Here you're going to put in the 10171 port again, and again we're using the WMT RUC user, and you put in the password for that. If it's a big file, I would move this way up to a very, very high number, 300 or 400 seconds or something like that. And then click on Begin Export. And that's how you do it, everything remotely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And we'll go back to our initial slide. And at this point, that was an introduction to use the RUC as an Ethernet PIM with Upstart. So I want to invite you to watch our next video in this video series using triggers on the RUC02. This will take advantage of the export that we did from Upstart into the RUC02 in order to set up triggers. So do us a favor and watch this next video. Thanks. Have a great day.